if you've ever waited, I mean really waited, 10 agonizing minutes just to hear, hello, hello, can you hear me? Through a wall of static.
And just praying the connection holds.
Exactly. If you know that feeling, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
That sound, that uncertainty, it's really the perfect way to start this conversation. It's the audio signature of a whole era defined by, well, by friction.
It really is. So today we are diving into a stack of sources we've been looking at called Echoes of the Analog Age. And it focuses on 8. Let's call them pre-digital experiences that really define this massive generational culture shock. Our mission here isn't just nostalgia, right? It's to understand these moments, these things that sources say Gen Z will never understand, and to figure out what we actually lost when all that difficulty was, engineered away.
Right. It's about the shift from a world that demanded a ton of effort for a pretty delayed reward to today, where everything is just instant family.
And these sources, they're not just a list of old gadgets. They're more like a catalog of social and cognitive friction points.
Yeah, they document these cultural norms that were basically forced on us by the limits of the technology itself. So the real question we have to ask is, what are the consequences of removing all of that friction? What vital mental muscles might have weakened in our quest for total convenience?
Okay, let's start there. Let's unpack this with the most basic social interaction, because the shift in how we even talk to each other is fascinating. I'm talking about calling someone without texting first.
Oh, yeah.
In the analog days, if you wanted to, you just called.
Oh.
It was, I don't know, pure chaos, wasn't it?
It was absolute chaos by today's standards, because now a phone call is this. It's a negotiated event. The sources are super clear on this. Back then, there was no, hey, can I call you text.
Right.
You didn't need social consent to just initiate. You just did it, and they either picked up or they didn't. End of story.
And it seems like a small thing, but think about the cognitive load that's been added today. We have this whole new protocol where you have to manage the other person's schedule, their mood, their availability, all before the conversation even starts.
Whereas the old friction just forced this kind of immediacy and a tolerance for being interrupted. The phone rang, you just had to deal with it.
That lack of a digital filter, it connects so directly to another lost skill the sources bring up. And that's memorizing phone numbers.
Oh, this one is huge.
It's brutal. I think I know, 5 numbers by heart today? Maybe. My own, couple of family members.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But I remember having a whole phone book in my head.
Exactly. And the sources list them out so specifically. Your best friend's number, your home phone, your cousin, the neighbor. You didn't just save them. You committed them to long-term memory.
You had to.
You had to. And what's so fascinating about that is what it says about reliance. Your memory was the only hard drive. You instinctively prioritized that contact data because your entire social network depended on your brain's ability to process it.
There's a line in the documents on this that it's so direct. It says, today, if the phone dies, relationships die.
And it sounds dramatic, but it's kind of true, isn't it? We have outsourced a core part of our social infrastructure. Your network used to be in your head, completely independent of a battery.
Portable.
Totally portable. Now, if your phone runs out of juice, you are functionally cut off from everyone you know. You can't even call for help.
Wow. Okay, so from social anxiety, let's pivot to technical anxiety. The actual act of connecting. We have to talk about the sound of getting online. That internet that screamed before it worked.
That sound, that screeching, high-pitched, dial-up noise, I mean, for millions of people, that is a core auditory memory, and it represents this massive hurdle. It wasn't just slow internet. It was a whole ritual of frustration.
You had to listen to it. You had to listen for the handshake to make sure it connected properly.
Right. The effort was just audible, measurable in those horrible sound waves.
But the anticipation built into that sound. You'd go through the screeching and the clicks, and then that moment of silence. And then finally, the reward of being connected. It created a really powerful psychological loop.
It did. The reward felt so good because the effort and the potential for failure were so high. But the real friction, the part the sources really highlight, was the shared connectivity. Specifically, the disaster that happened when someone picked up the landline.
Game over.
Instantly.
Whatever you were doing, downloading, chatting, just gone. Wiped out by a simple accidental act.
And this is a perfect example of technology forcing boundary management in a home. Connectivity wasn't this personal thing on your own device. It was a communal resource running through one wire.
So if you were online, you were actively blocking your mom or your dad from making a call.
Exactly. You had to negotiate. It taught compromise because you had to coordinate your online time with everyone else's phone time.
But hold on, wasn't that also just a huge invasion of privacy? The source frames it as sharing, but for a teenager, I mean, it's just constant parental oversight.
Well, that's the counterpoint, right? The analog age was inherently low privacy. There was no escaping the shared resources. So yes, while it taught a negotiation, it also enforced a level of accountability, a presence in the household. That's just completely different from today's world where everyone is in their own digital silo.
That's a great transition. From a shared electrical connection to shared physical media. Let's talk about the manual labor of it all. Specifically, rewinding tapes with a pencil.
Yes. This is such a great example of a design flaw becoming a cultural ritual. Gen Z has a button, they just skip forward 10 seconds. We had to perform manual labor.
With a little yellow pencil, sticking it in the spool.
Or just your finger. If you were desperate, you were physically turning the tape, you had to treat the technology with a certain, I don't know, a certain respect because it demanded that physical care.
And if you didn't, the risk was so high.
The risk is what makes it so resonant. The sources nail it. One wrong move, one slip, and tape eaten equals childhood trauma unlocked.
Oh, wow.
And this wasn't just effort. It was effort with real consequences. The destruction of something valuable. Tapes are expensive. If it got eaten, that was it. It was gone.
So the manual effort was tied directly to the perceived value. You valued it because you had to work to maintain it, which brings us to the ultimate example of permanence. Photos you couldn't delete.
Think about the modern safety net. You have endless storage. You can take 100 burst shots of the same thing.
Filters, immediate review.
All of it. Back then, you had 12, 24, maybe 36 shots on a roll of film. One photo. One chance. You had to commit to the moment, to the lighting, to everything, knowing you wouldn't even see the result for days.
Every click of that shutter carried so much weight. It wasn't just documenting. It was like making a major kind of expensive decision.
And the sources capture that anxiety perfectly. If you messed up a shot or took an embarrassing photo, well, that picture, that's your personality forever.
Wow.
That permanence forced higher standards. It forced intentionality. Modern digital stuff is so fluid and disposable. Analog output was.
Yeah.
It was final.
Okay, so we've covered how manual effort and permanence forced a kind of discipline. Now let's talk about what the sheer act of waiting forced on us.
Patience, which feels like an ancient virtue now in the age of instant everything.
Let's dive right into media. Waiting a whole week for one TV episode. No binge watching.
Waiting a week meant the experience was stretched out. It became a ritual, a communal, cultural appointment. The conversations about the show would last all week, at work or at school, leading up to the next one.
And the stakes of missing it were so high. The documents are really blunt about this. If you missed it, your life just has a gap now.
That's it. You couldn't just catch up instantly. You just had a hole in your understanding of the story. The show was a cultural event you participated in, not a utility you controlled.
That weekly schedule built up anticipation in a way that binge watching, as great as it is, just can't. Binge watching collapses time, but waiting expands it.
And that uncertainty, that reliance on your own schedule and your own memory, it extended way beyond TV. Think about just going out without a GPS.
You just left. That's it. No map on your phone, no voice telling you where to turn, no live location for your friends to track.
Yeah.
The sheer anxiety of not knowing where you are is something that's just lost on us now.
The sources say you were truly lost, not just geographically, but, and I love this phrase, spiritually and geographically.
Yes. And what did you have to do? You had to stop. You had to pull out a physical map, which is its own skill.
Yeah.
Or you had to swallow your pride and talk to a stranger. Ask for directions.
And that's a huge cognitive leap. Navigating without a GPS requires resilience, a tolerance for ambiguity. You had to be okay with not knowing for a little while, trusting your own sense of direction, and using problem-solving skills to figure it out. It's so different from just following a blue line on a screen.
And finally, let's talk about the complete absence of stimulation, something that feels almost impossible today, being bored and surviving it.
The sources paint this really stark picture for the modern mind. No scrolling, no feeds, no quick dopamine hit waiting in your pocket.
If you were waiting for a bus or just sitting in a room, what did you do with that empty time? The option to pull out a device just wasn't there.
And here's the aha moment from the sources. They connect that forced inactivity directly to output. Surviving boredom meant, quote, staring at walls, overthinking life, and somehow becoming creative.
Boredom wasn't just something to tolerate. It was the catalyst. It was the empty space that forced your brain to invent its own entertainment.
Yeah, to structure its own daydreams or solve problems you didn't even know you were thinking about.
And today, because we're constantly fed input notifications, algorithms, short videos, that vital moment of quiet, of just staring at a wall and letting your brain work, is almost impossible to find.
It's much, much harder to achieve. The constant input smooths over the discomfort of boredom, but that discomfort is actually essential for deep reflection. If you never experience the void, you never feel the need to fill it with your own original thoughts.
So let's pull this all together. Our deep dive into these echoes of the analog age seems to show that life was defined by, what, three things? High friction, enforced patience, and non-negotiable permanence.
Yeah, every basic thing, from calling a friend to taking a picture, it just required more effort, it carried more risk, and it forced you to rely on your own internal skills.
And that's why the source has that final callback. If you understood even half of these experiences, you're emotionally strong.
Which is really just another way of saying that resilience, planning, patience, these weren't optional soft skills. They were essential survival mechanisms that you developed just by dealing with the shortcomings of the technology.
You had to be resourceful because the technology was basically working against you. Now, technology is designed specifically to smooth over every single inconvenience.
And that relentless search for ease has to come at a cost. We gain convenience, but we might be losing some core human competence that all that analog friction forced us to build. We've outsourced navigation, memory, even the job of entertaining ourselves.
So here's something for you to mull over. If we offload all of those navigational, social, and memory tasks to our devices, what mental muscles are atrophying in the process? Are we becoming more efficient, but maybe fundamentally less capable of handling difficulty when the batteries die, the network fails? Or we're just faced with an unavoidable moment of true undirected boredom?